Hey, big day at Gold's Garage today, lots to tell you. So this is the last video about Tony Guzzo's 302. And typically, Tony's on the way here. He'll be here any minute. It's a 6-hour drive from Sudbury, Ontario to get here. And he texted me he's on the way. So we want to get some information in before he gets here. His engine is actually sitting outside. We're going to start it up for you with the headers off and let you hear what it sounds like. It's a retro 302 Z28 cam, but it's more radical than the original Z28 cam. So it's actually, this is my son's race engine, and it's got a bigger cam than my son's race engine has. So that gives you an idea in terms of duration. Anyway, so that's going to be pretty cool. We're going to run it when Tony gets here, but I want to go through a couple things. First of all, this is our 4.7 swap. Paul Phelan is now the owner of it. This is the one we had at the dyno that got tight, completely rebuilt November the 9th, next Saturday, week from yesterday. We're going to dyno that. So, and I got my son's race engine back. I got it a little bit cleaned up. These are just my shop valve covers. I'm painting his valve covers. I'm going to actually totally disassemble this engine, do kind of making it kind of a science project, and they're going to make some changes to it. It ran great. He won races with it, but I think I can make it better. So let's get back to Tony's. So typically, when we turn an engine over to a customer, we take it to the dyno. Customer comes to the dyno. He brings the coffee, and my wife Marianne is going to get us some Tim Hortons. So yeah, that's a Canadian tradition, by the way. And if you live in northern United States, there's lots of Tim Hortons there. I worked in Detroit, Michigan for a long time, and there's lots of Tim Hortons on the way to work. So anyway, we're going to turn it over. I got a couple of baseball caps. Tony's buddy Robert Sentis is also coming, and Robert owns the other 302, and Robert has all the parts except his block was not usable. We sonic tested it, and we would have to bore it to 60 thousandths to clean it up, unfortunately, and we sonic tested it, and we couldn't do that. The cylinder walls would be too thin, and the only way to do that would be reducing the compression, and it wouldn't be a very great 302. So Robert's still looking for an MO 1968 block, if anybody's got one. So he's on the way here as well, and we're going to start up and run it. But before that, one of the things I always do is, in most of the videos anyway, give the customer a book of documents. So what the heck is in the book of documents? So we're going to show you, give you a quick leaf through, and Alex is going to come in here and we're going to just give you a little demo. So the front page is actually a cutaway view of an original Z28 302 engine. I got it out of this calendar. My favorite late brother-in-law, Eric Usla, who just passed away this year, gave me this calendar a long time ago, and it's got all the iconic Chevrolet engines that were made, the L88 and Z28 engine, and all that, 454, all that, pretty cool. So I just made that for Tony because that's his 302. And Tony's 302, we'll talk more about it, is going to be totally authentic for all the parts that we have used. So what's in the book of documents? So that's a picture of Tony's car, and if you've seen my car in the background before, you can see it's almost identical. It's hard to tell the difference between them actually, unless you really look at it. And that's Tony's car. So I always say plan, plan, plan. So before we even started, before we spent one dime on this engine or spent any labor other than analyzing the parts we had, we make a plan. And I wrote this out in a Word document. At this time, I was including Robert's engine as well because they both came here at the same time. So that's a 4-page document assessing the parts, giving them options for all the things that we would have to do to make it an authentic 302 and yet better than the original 302. So that was done long before we even started doing any actual work on the engine other than assessing it. So that's done. This is something you might find interesting. This is just a photocopy, or a picture basically, of Tony's Canadian certification for his Z28. Now, if you live anywhere but Canada, it's impossible to decode the VIN or any other numbers on the car to certify that it's a Z28. But if it was imported to Canada, it had to get registered. And so they took the VIN number and all the information, all the accessories, etc., options, etc., were coded, and there's the Z28 option. I have one of those for my Z28 as well, and it's really valid proof that it is an authentic Z28. So that's worth something, and that adds value to the car. So here's the final product that we produce, and I'm going to go through a couple of points for you just quickly. So the block's an original correct 678 casting. We had it totally prepared by Atchison Machine in London, Ontario. Hot tank, Magnaflux, jet wash, board, 30,000s, and we even line home. Typically we don't do that. Typically it's not necessary to do that, but this engine is going to go, it's capable of going more than 7,000 RPM, and I'm sure Tony will have it going 7,000 RPM. He has a 456 gear in his Z28, so we wanted to do everything we could, and the rotating assembly is also balanced as well. We did use the original 1178 Chevrolet 302 forged crank. Did a bunch of work on it. Atchison's prepared that crank for me. We have scat rods with ARP rod bolts, and we have the pistons are forged 10.4 to 1, 10.4 pistons, forged pistons. So the cam is it's a retro Z28 302 cam. The lift is 504/498. Their stock lift after lash is only 455, but the duration at 50 is 247/254, and that is maybe not more than the GM specification, but GM had very soft ramps. That's a lot more cam. In fact, that's more cam that's in my son's race engine. So as far as duration is concerned, lobe separation is 112, and this intake center line is 108 degrees, and that this cam is degreed in actually at 106.5 degrees. The valve lash is 12 thou. We're using the original GM stamp, the zero stamp. I've showed this in videos where I assembled it. The zero stamp rocker arms are the special ones you use only on the solid lifter cam engines, and Tony has a set of those, and we're using them, and they'll be just fine. The original engines went 7,000 RPM all day long with those, and Tony's will too. They're only 1.5 rocker ratio. He could actually increase the power on this engine if he wanted to go to 1.6, but there are no zero stamp 1.6 rocker arms. So the heads are the 291 castings. We had these heads completely prepared by Bill Little at Belmont Auto in London, Ontario. We're lucky to have Bill. He's the best in the business. He not only ported them, he flow tested these heads, and he achieved about 260 CFM on the intake and over 190 CFM on the exhaust. And stock, I think they're about 200 and 150. So that's a huge improvement. Lots of work to, and we're going to talk about that in a future video, to bring these heads up to, equivalent to an aftermarket head. But that's what it took. Tony wants this to be original, but better, and that's how we accomplish that. The original aluminum intake manifold is on it, and we're going to see the whole engine when we go to start it in a minute here. We did go, in the end, we didn't plan it that way. We went with 15 thou thick original stainless steel head gaskets, and that gave us 10.46 to 1 compression and 27 thou deck height, so that's 42 thou quench. So really good numbers. We're happy with the numbers. All the parts and accessories are correct. There's the cam card. I just described the cam to you, but there's the original cam card, and that'll go in Tony's package. There's the compression calculation. So that's, and anybody can do this. This is just off Summit. I've used this method of determining compression. I've done it the long way, the hard way, many times, and I get exactly the same number. So it's a pretty reliable formula that you can just get for free online. Bore, stroke, combustion chamber volume. The pistons are minus 6.5. They're dome pistons. 27 thou deck height, 15 thou Head gasket thickness, 10.46 to 1 compression ratio. So this engine will run fine on pump gas with that. And then this is the documentation. This is all the numbers I took on the engine when I tore it down with the parts that Tony had, and this is after with new bearings and rings and so on. All the piston clearances, connector rod bearing clearances. I averaged them out basically to analyze all the numbers. And this is the final result. We took this compression and leak down test after the engine was run. Now, this engine has not been dynoed, so it's been run on my test stand, but the test stand doesn't break in the rings. We have broken the camshaft successfully. No issues with the camshaft at all. I've checked the valves multiple times. And we got an average of 13% leak down and 174 psi of compression pressure. If you've listened to my videos before, I usually say 180 is the maximum, so we're just under that number. And what happens is, because of the late closing point, I think this comp cams closes at 70 degrees after bottom dead center. That bleeds off some compression, so we still have 176. I think these are really nice numbers for a street engine. I mentioned that we also flow tested the heads. There's 192 CFM on the exhaust valve after Bill Little's porting. This is a final that was done in September. And there's, after Bill Little porting, there's the intake valve. At 500 thou lift, he had 262 CFM, which is the numbers I just quoted. So there's a bunch of other reports in here. We did various other tests, and we actually tested the stock heads as well. So after that, what other documentation? We had a little contest when we were building the engine to get input from viewers about what camshaft we should use. So that's the evaluation of that. We ended up using this cam, and this is the one that Tony originally picked. The roller cam would have made more power, but he wanted it to be authentic. And if you notice, it's got 63.5 degrees of overlap. That's enough for a street engine, that's for sure. I haven't checked the vacuum on it yet, but it's not going to be 20 inches, that's for sure. But we'll check that. So that's the same information. And then I also include all the original documentation that comes. Read the instructions, right? So all that stuff that comes in the package, I give to Tony, comp cams, ARP. There's the piston information from SRP, all the information from comp, etc. And that's all included, so Tony gets all that. Oh yeah, there's also a bill. This does cost money. So what I do, just to point out, this is a documentation of every man-hour charged to the job, the date it was charged, and exactly what was done in order to achieve the rebuild. So that's full documentation. It takes 2 pages to report it, and the balance is 0. He's already paid for it. Here's more original receipts from Belmont Automotive, all the places, the Atchison receipts, etc. So Tony gets everything that it took to build this engine. I should have put that in a more earlier page. So that's what's in the book of documents. And by the way, this calendar was actually developed by a guy named David Kimball. It's pretty cool. I'm sure you can get this is a 2011 calendar, but I keep it because it's got such cool stuff. And there's a picture of him in here somewhere. And Tony and Robert are just backing in the driveway. We will stop here, and when we get Tony and Robert here, we're going to fire it up and see how it sounds. Okay, Tony and Robert are here, so this is what we've been working for a while, and we're going to start up and listen to see how Tony's engine. This is your book of documents.
Thank you.
I just made a video of all the details in there, so you can see it that way, and that's yours. Baseball caps, we've got some decals for them, and we're going to start up their engine and let it hear it run, and then we'll get some comments from you guys after you hear it run. How does that sound? So.
Sure.
Okay. Once we get this start up and run, obviously we've got to get it off the test stand and get it loaded up for them. So people often comment, how do your neighbors like you running the engines in your yard? Well, actually, As far as I know, most of them like it. Sometimes they actually come over to see what's going on because they're interested in it. And I am respectful, usually not usually, always of them. I do have mufflers off now, open headers for this video, but typically if I'm running an engine to break it in, I put mufflers on it so it doesn't make any more noise than an ordinary car. So it's Tony's engine. We're going to fire it up and see how it sounds. That's enough noise for the neighbors. What do you think?
Sounds fantastic.
Now,
sounds very good.
I have to point out that everything on this engine is correct. The block, the heads, the intake manifold. Obviously, the distributor, carburetor are not. These are just shop parts. And Tony has the right distributor and the right carburetor back in his shop. Right. So before he installs it, he'll have the right parts on it. But these are just shop parts. So I have had it idling at 1,000 RPM. You got to play with it a little bit, but that carburetor is not going to stay on it anyway, so I didn't play around with it too much. This engine has run more than an hour on my test stand now, and so it's the rings are not broken in, but the cam sure is broken in, and so we're happy with that. Once again, typically we turn the engine over at the dyno through nobody's fault here. Tony brought this engine to me in March. And I think he planned to be driving it around by about summertime with his Z28. Yeah. And everything else went pretty much as planned, except we ordered a comp cam nitrited. Comp couldn't deliver it. More than 3 months waiting. I had the short block together in June. More than 3 months waiting for the cam. And finally Tony bought another cam, same cam, but not nitrited. I had it in and running in a few days. And he's finally here. He wants to get it back up. I know you're going to get it in this year or not?
Tomorrow.
Oh, you're putting it in tomorrow. Okay, there you go. Okay, Tony. Well, thanks for your business.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming all the way down. 6-hour drive from Sudbury.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I just saw a statistic from YouTube yesterday. More than half of the people viewing this video are new viewers. I've never seen a Gold Scratch video before. So this is the chance for you to subscribe. Costs you nothing, but it sure helps me, and that's why we're doing this. Thank you for watching Gold Scratch. Thank you for coming, Robert. Thank you for coming, Tony. And the next ones, by the way, is going to be Robert's, right? Yes. As soon as we find the block, we're going to do exactly the same thing. So, Thank you for watching.
Thank you.